Iran had the belief that it had complete control over the situation in the Strait of Hormuz. Despite the fact that the military infrastructure of the regime has been destroyed, Iran was still able to gain influence through the use of swift boats in that strait. Not any longer. Something that would completely alter the course of the conflict has just been dispatched to Iran by the United States, and it is currently on its way to the Strait of Hormuz. Iran is living through its worst nightmare. One thing that the dictatorship did not anticipate happening. It is possible that American troops are getting ready to enter Iran. The United States of America was reportedly sending additional warships in the direction of Iran on March 14th, according to a number of different outlets, including the BBC. In addition to this, an increase in naval strength typically results in an increase in the number of attacks that are carried out on Iranian land. Despite what we have seen with the deployments of American carriers over the past few weeks, this is a different situation. An amphibious assault ship known as the United States ship Tripoli is in charge of the ships that are heading in the direction of Iran. This ship also happens to be in charge of an elite United States Marine Expeditionary Unit that is heading into the Middle East. It's a major deal. We will explain why this might or might not be the case later in the film, but the most obvious indication that the United States is getting ready to put boots on the ground is the presence of amphibious ships and expeditionary units. The war zone, often known as TWZ, provides further information regarding the group that is being dispatched. It is stated that the most recent band of ships set off after the United States. The United States government gave their consent to Central Command directly. Pete Hegseth, Secretary of War, is the one who will dispatch them. According to the publication, an amphibious ready group, also known as an ARG, is currently on its way to Iran. This group comprises a Marine Expeditionary Force that is affiliated to it. There are normally 2 transport docks, an assault ship, and a support vessel that are all components of an ARG. The support vessel is designed to carry an embarked Marine Expeditionary Unit, MEU, consisting of at least 2,200 Marines, and it is likely that they can hold even more. The 31st Marine Expeditionary Force is the name of the force that is being dispatched to the Middle East, according to the New York Times, which also gives us with the information that approximately 2,500 Marines are currently on their way to the region. The United States Navy ship Tripoli and the ships that it commands are currently departing from their regular base in Japan and making their way to the Middle East. Our attention is also drawn to the fact that the sailors and Marines aboard these vessels have been preparing for something. On March 13th, the United States took action. The Indo-Pacific Command published photographs that showed sailors on the United States Navy ship Tripoli participating in a live fire drill the day before. Despite the fact that this was presented as a routine exercise, which it very well could have been, the timing does not appear to be coincidence. It was on March 12th that the exercise was being carried out. Over the course of 2 days, it became public knowledge that the United States Navy ship Tripoli was its route to the Middle East. And this is when things start to go from bad to worse for the dictatorship in Iran. It's possible that this ARG and expeditionary unit will be the first of many to come. Ian Ellis disclosed in an X post that the United States of America has additional anti-radical groups, ARGs, and task forces stationed in the Pacific region that are ready to be dispatched to Iran at any time. Among them are Task Force Ashland, which is currently stationed in Thailand, and the USS Arlington, which is another amphibious warship that was reported on March 1st as conducting repeated loading operations out of Norfolk while surrounded by armed security boats. It's possible that this was intended to be training for a deployment to Iran. It is not possible for us to know for certain, but it appears that these kinds of drills are attempting to simulate the kinds of situations that the ship would encounter in the Strait of Hormuz. It is important to keep that canal in mind, because we will be going back to it in just a few moments. Nevertheless, in addition to the task force and battleship that we have just described, Ian Ellis also mentions that there are 3 ARGs, namely the Iwo Jima Boxer and Kiasat, that are all in a position to join the USS Tripoli and its grouping in the event that the United States choose to bring them on board. So it's possible that what we're witnessing right now is the beginning of something extremely significant in terms of maritime deployment. But even if it isn't the United States Navy ship Tripoli, and the ships that support it alone are enough to convince Iran that the United States' entire stance in the conflict is about to shift. On the other hand, such transformation is not going to occur immediately. MT has shared an open-source intelligence update with the community. Anderson on X reports that the United States Navy ship Tripoli is traveling at a very rapid pace in the direction of the Middle East. It is possible to monitor this through the use of satellite photographs, which reveal that the ship's wake is sufficiently large to suggest that it is extremely difficult for it to reach the Middle East. The ship and its troops, however, still have to make it to the Middle East from where it is stationed in White Beach, which is located in Okinawa, Japan. This is the case even though they are traveling at such a rapid speed. On March 12th, the battleship was observed making its way into the Bashi Channel, which is located between Taiwan and the Philippines. It is possible that it will take an additional week or two before it arrives in the Middle East. However, this does not alter the headline in any way. Amphibious warships and Marines are being dispatched to the Middle East by the United States of America. Because of the leverage that Iran possesses in the Strait of Hormuz, this is Iran's worst fear. This is especially true when it comes to the situation. However, before we get into that, it is important to conduct a more in-depth examination of what a Marine Expeditionary Unit is. This is because it provides us with some clues about what the United States may be contemplating with regard to this most recent deployment. As a result of the fact that these kinds of units are among the most adaptable that the United States military has to offer, the New York Times has observed that they are frequently referred to as the United States 911 Force. To put it another way, these are the units that you contact when you have an urgent problem that needs to be fixed. Marine Expeditionary Units have been utilized for a wide range of purposes, including but not limited to the execution of counter-piracy activities and the initial deployment of troops on the ground whenever large operations are being carried out, as was the case in Afghanistan during the war in 2001. In addition to being self-sufficient and capable of providing rapid response, these forces are organized to provide air-ground and logistics assets that are divided into 4 distinct divisions. The first component to be discussed is the command element, which functions as the headquarters for the unit and provides assistance to all of the forces that are deployed. A ground combat element is the most powerful component of the Marine Expeditionary Unit in terms of the amount of pure fighting force it possesses. In most cases, this component includes a Marine Infantry Battalion, which is accompanied by artillery support, reconnaissance assets, a team of engineers and amphibious vehicles that are utilized for landings on enemy territory. The addition of the aviation combat element results in the addition of some air power to the already existing combination. This component includes a medium helicopter squadron that is comprised of a variety of transport helicopter variants. It is also possible for a Marine Expeditionary Unit to transport fighter jets and attack helicopters into the theater of operations, in addition to an air defense team and other airborne assets that provide assistance to the men who are physically present on the ground. And last but not least, there is the issue of logistics combat. This essential supporting component is responsible for several things, including transportation supplies, equipment maintenance, and medical care. It would appear that the United States is not sending a small number of soldiers to the Middle East. This is a highly trained Marine unit that is a part of a bigger amphibious assault squad that represents a complete shift in the United States' stance. Those who live in the Strait of Hormuz are likely to be the ones to feel the effects of that shift the most strongly. It is easy to understand why Iran has been causing such a great deal of trouble in that waterway. The Iranian government has been able to keep its attention on the Strait of Hormuz despite the fact that its military infrastructure on the mainland has been completely destroyed. Fast boats that are managed by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, also known as the IRGC, as well as drones that are launched from Iran itself, have been targeting commercial vessels that combine to emphasize the Strait of Hormuz as one of the most significant waterways in the world. This is a body of water that is only 31 miles wide at both its entrance and exit, which makes it simple for Iran's boats to patrol the area. And it is essential to the transportation of 20 million barrels of oil each and every day, beginning in the year 2025. Iran's actions in the strait, which have nearly entirely shut off the waterway, with the exception of a few ships that dare to make the crossing, pose a threat to the economy of the entire world. According to a report that was published by CBS News on March 15th, Iran is implementing measures to make the strait into a choke point by targeting commercial shipping, which is causing a significant increase in the price of oil. According to the outlet, one of the most important goals that the United States is working toward right now is to wrest control of the Strait of Hormuz away from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC. As of March 12th, the IRGC has already assaulted at least 16 commercial vessels, resulting in the deaths of 8 individuals and the disappearance of 1 among them. There have been only 77 ships that have been brave enough to traverse the strait during the first half of March, as stated by TWZ report. To put this into perspective, during the same time period, in 2025, there were 1,229 movements via the Strait of Hormuz. Therefore, we are only observing around 1/16 of the traffic that ought to be flowing through the strait at this very moment is actually passing through. Iran's leverage may be seen here. As long as Iran and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, are permitted to maintain their influence in the Strait of Hormuz, those attacks are going to continue. It is a posture shift that demonstrates how the Iran war is going into a new phase after the United States has damaged the military infrastructure of the country via the use of air power. The arrival of Marine Expeditionary Force to that strait is exactly that. The entrance of this item brings about a complete adjustment. And just so you know, this is Conflict Report, where we provide you with the complete picture, not just the headlines. Subscribing will ensure that you are constantly one step ahead of the competition. That is the alteration in stance. Military commanders stationed in the region are provided with the opportunity to carry out a broad variety of security missions in the Strait of Hormuz as a result of the arrival of the United States Navy ship Tripoli and up to 2,500 Marines. If the United States does decide to put its boots on the ground, these missions may entail limited operations against the ports and other areas from where Iran is sending its fast assault boats into the strait. There is also the possibility that these missions will include the evacuation of people from commercial ships that have been damaged. In addition, it is interesting to note that the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, which is currently its route to the Middle East, is a component of the United States' Indo-Pacific force posture. A clear message is being sent by the United States that it is willing to weaken itself in the Indo-Pacific area in order to enhance its posture in Iran. This is being done by reallocating critical assets, although it is probable that this will only be done for the short term. To put it another way, the United States is not going to give in to the pressure that Iran is exerting in the Strait of Hormuz. The Middle East is receiving an even greater amount of firepower from this. This deployment takes place approximately 2 weeks after the United States launched Operation Epic Fury. Gulf News notes that it may also provide the Pentagon with the capacity to undertake strikes against the islands in and around the Persian Gulf that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, relies on for its Strait of Hormuz strategy. Therefore, it is possible that the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit will target missile batteries and drone launch sites on these islands. Additionally, they may also eliminate whatever mine-laying capabilities Iran still possesses. This is in response to the fact that the United States has already destroyed 16 of Iran's mine-laying vessels, as reported by the United States Central Command. According to Hegseth, there is a plan in place even though the United States is not providing us with specific details of what that plan might be. As we mentioned earlier, a Marine Expeditionary Unit that is going to the Middle East gives the United States access to a variety of alternatives. Hegseth stated that the only thing that is now preventing transit in Hormuz is Iran shooting at shipping. This statement was made during a press conference that took place on March 13th. In the event that Iran takes that action, it is open for transit. This may be a statement that is self-evident, but it also provides us with a clue as to what is going on in the mind of the Secretary of War for the United States of America. Hegseth asserts that the United States is already dealing with Iran's attacks on commercial shipping, and TWZ adds that he stated that the United States is not going to allow the Strait of Hormuz to continue to be contested. Therefore, the United States of America has some form of plan. It is now a straightforward question. How does the plan work? Stay with us as we investigate what the possibility of boots on the ground may imply for the future of Operation Epic Fury. This is a possibility that appears to be growing more likely. Having said that, it is possible that Hegseth is referring to the fact that he is interested in having the adaptability and range of possibilities that we have already described. In order to provide assistance to the United States' aerial operations against Iran, for example, a Marine Expeditionary Battalion may be utilized. According to TWZ, these units are able to provide more aircraft, including F-35s, in order to carry out operations. It is currently unknown whether those missions will be carried out on the Iranian territory or are going to be carried out at sea. For the latter scenario, it is possible that the United States is making preparations to send a few fighter jets into the air over the Strait of Hormuz, where they will be able to fire on Iranian drones and fast boats. The publication makes notice of the fact that the United States Navy ship Tripoli in particular was constructed with this kind of function in mind, and that it is even capable of being converted into an F-35 Lightning carrier if that becomes necessary. Perhaps that is just the plan. It is possible that the United States will be able to send a strike force similar to that of a carrier into the Strait of Hormuz with the arrival of the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit in the Middle East. This will allow the United States to avoid diverting the attention of the carriers that it already possesses in the region. Once you factor in the fact that the Marines themselves are carrying out crisis missions, such as search and rescue operations, for commercial vessels that Iran attacks, you have what might be considered an escort being supplied to the ships that are attempting to pass through the strait. Although it is not a very large escort, it is one that enables quick responses to be taken in response to threats that are posed in the Strait of Hormuz. And further possibility is that the United States of America might launch an assault on islands in and around the Persian Gulf by employing its Marines and amphibious attack vessels. During the bombing of Karg Island, which the Wall Street Journal describes as Iran's greatest vital economic asset, we witnessed something similar to this. That island, which serves as the point of departure for 90% of Iran's oil exports, was subjected to what may be described as a warning shot when the United States destroyed infrastructure, but left the majority of Iran's oil assets unaffected. If Iran continues to refuse to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, President Donald Trump of the United States has stated that the United States will rethink its decision to let Iran's oil alone from the situation. Is it possible that the Marines and amphibious ships that are already on their way to the Middle East could act as a response to that threat? Yes, that is feasible. The fact that Iran owns more than 30 islands in the Persian Gulf region is another interesting fact. Yet only a few of these islands are accessible to tourists. You may recall that we indicated earlier that amphibious landings on these islands could provide the United States with the opportunity to seize control of areas of land that are most likely being used as launch pads for Iran's fast boats and drones. There would be a reduction in the amount of leverage that Iran possesses through the Strait of Hormuz if they were to possess that control. As a result, the United States may be preparing for a future in which it will control the Strait of Hormuz by seizing control of vital islands right in front of the Iranian regime, which is currently experiencing a great deal of difficulty. The United States would continue to carry out airstrikes against Iran throughout this entire process, and they would also keep the ever-present danger of future assaults against Karg Island over the collective head of the Iranian regime with them. Putting boots on the ground, there is also the likelihood that Trump stated at the beginning of March that the United States was not even close to closing the gap between the two countries. As was indicated earlier, the first conventional United States military force to arrive on the ground in Afghanistan was a Marine Expeditionary Unit, more precisely, the 15th Unit. This occurred in the year 2001. That is a truth that cannot be overlooked now that a comparable force is moving in the direction of Iran, as it indicates that Marine Expeditionary Units have served as the spearheads for larger land attacks in the past. This is something that can't be ignored. According to Bloomberg, President Trump is still debating whether or not to put boots on the ground. This is because doing so would entail placing United States forces directly in the line of fire, which has the potential to send shockwaves through his base of support back in the United States. Despite this, it is becoming an increasingly likely scenario, and in the event that the United States does send troops into Iran, there are a few clear targets that they could aim at. Among these aims, the most obvious one is to take Karg Island along with a few other islands for the reasons that we discussed before. According to Bloomberg, the United States may be interested in gaining control of significant quantities of enriched uranium that are now in the grip of Iran. This is the kind of target that the United States and Israel attacked during Operation Midnight Hammer, which took place in June. Additionally, there is evidence that P-2 bombers delivered huge ordnance penetrators at additional underground sites in Iran during Operation Epic Fury. It is necessary to have forces on the ground in order to take full control of the situation and prevent a dirty bomb scenario from occurring. This would be necessary in order to prevent Iran from exploiting these types of facilities altogether. On the other hand, Bloomberg argues that there is yet another possibility. According to the publication, a third mission would involve forming a partnership with the Central Intelligence Agency and the Mossad of Israel in order to deploy small teams into Iran with the purpose of establishing a genuine resistance movement by establishing connections with the political opposition. This proposal, despite the fact that it appears to be completely out of the ordinary, appears to be in close accordance with the way the United States views a regime transition taking place in Iran. Following the initial attacks that were carried out against the regime of Iran on February 28th, President Trump even made a declaration to the Iranian people saying, "When we are finished, take over your government. According to the New York Times, you will be able to take possession of it." And despite the fact that Trump has softened his stance on those remarks a little bit since then, pointing out that It is a pretty big ask for the regular Iranian people to rise up when there are still members of the IRGC in the streets, gunning down those who protest Iran's regime. It is still apparent that the United States envisions a future in which it plays a supporting role for an anti-regime movement in Iran. Is it possible that the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit is responsible for taking on that role? There is a significant amount of danger associated with this possible course of action. In order to begin the process of forming an anti-regime army that is capable of functioning with assistance from the United States Mossad and the Central Intelligence Agency CIA will need to have relationships already established on the ground in Iran, as well as sufficient confidence in these contacts. However, in this scenario, the United States may utilize the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit to seize critical military and economic hubs, such as Karg Island, while simultaneously giving training and a through line of weaponry to a resistance organization that is focused on overthrowing the Iranian regime on the mainland. Plenty of Iran's military firepower has been ruined by the US. A resistance movement would be in the best position it has been in since the Iranian Revolution to make a move if it had the ability to organize, acquire money, and acquire weapons. Marines and employees of special forces from the United States have the potential to shift the scales in favor of those revolutionaries who are opposed to the regime. Despite the fact that it may appear to be an absurd scenario, if it were to occur, Iran's influence in the Strait of Hormuz would be eliminated, and the regime of the country would not be far after. Moreover, Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, is observing the situation from the outside. Putin, who had been utilizing Iran to strengthen Russia's power in the Middle East, had no intention of any of this happening to him. Nevertheless, this is the case, and the disintegration of Iran's government would have significant repercussions for the president of Russia. Have a look at our video to learn more about the implications of those ramifications. If you found this video to be enjoyable, make sure that you subscribe to Conflict Report so that you are never left out on our most recent analysis of the actions taken by the United States in Iran. Also, I am grateful that